Good evening, and welcome to the second meeting in April of the Torrington City Council. We're glad to see you all here tonight. Hope that you can be entertained and at the same time learn some stuff about what's going on with the Torrington City Council. We'll call the meeting to order, and the first order of business following that is the pledge, and Councilwoman Steinbach, if you'd lead us.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Yes.
Information items for tonight. It's mid-April, and in case you haven't noticed, the wind seems to be blowing nearly every day. I'm thinking that we may have dodged the late spring snowstorms and are rapidly moving toward warmer temperatures. This is the time of the year when we're outside raking up last year's dead stuff and getting ready to plant, water, and so on. The City of Torrington will likely tonight pass a much improved solid waste ordinance, which will go into effect immediately. Because of this, the City of Torrington will have a better handle on those who continue to misuse the dumpsters. Please follow the City of Torrington ordinances as we move toward the summer season. You might also have noticed that WYDOT has placed some traffic counters throughout the community. It'll give us a little better idea of the amount of traffic on the various streets and give us some way to make some kind of predictions about what we should do with our streets. Other than that, we don't know much about it. City of Torrington is now hiring for seasonal work. We're looking for workers in nearly all departments. Applicants can apply on the city's website or at City Hall for jobs starting immediately. All of the city sports fields begin to have a heavy use at this time of the year. Those fields are not to be used as a dog park. We have an excellent dog park for public use. No animals are allowed on the sports fields during non-game events. We've also been experiencing vandalism and inappropriate use at the sports facility. If you see any suspicious behavior there or anywhere for that matter, please report it to the police department. There are cameras on site, and people who are identified as having violated city ordinances will be held accountable. Even as we hear of a possible new variant in China and other places, the COVID situation here in Goshen County has remained pretty stable for the last few months. In the 2 years since COVID began, 57 Goshen County residents have died due to COVID complications. Community Hospital shows that there are currently 0 patients related with COVID, and that continues to be great news. We continue to encourage our people, even if you have yet to do so, to get vaccinated and boosted. I've not heard of any plans for another booster clinic at this point, although I have been informed that seniors with compromising conditions can request a second shot. Please contact Goshen County Public Health for vaccination information or your current public health provider. There's still no application or applicable information available to municipalities about the legislature's actions on the ARPA money that should soon become available. We have yet to be informed how much, when, and how to apply for the federal money that was appropriated by the legislature and designated for use by local governments. We here at the City of Torrington are prepared with several shovel-ready projects on the shelf, ready to go when that appropriated money arrives. The legislature appropriated $50 million specifically for local government support projects and another $50 million for water and sewer projects, which will be administered through the State Land and Investment Board. Municipalities will then make application for that money through the SLIB board. All Goshen County municipalities are anticipating spending money later this year on water and sewer projects. Other kinds of infrastructure projects, and whether that money can be used for them is not known. The City of Torrington is prepared to put whatever is allowed to use immediately. We have received word from the National Arbor Day Foundation that once again the City of Torrington has been identified as a Tree City USA member. Your continued efforts to take care of our many trees and to replace those that have died or have been damaged by winds and weather is important in making this city a pleasant place to live. Last Friday, April 8th at 10:30 a.m., there was a Arbor Day tree planting ceremony held at the sports complex where area 4th grade students participated by helping to plant 3 evergreen trees. On top of having great fun outside the classroom, the students learned about the value of trees to our community. Having this annual celebration reminds us of how important trees are to the environment and to all of us who live in Torrington. Please continue to be good stewards of the many trees in this community. Until this morning, the City of Torrington and representatives of the other 4 Goshen County municipalities were working on a 6-penny infrastructure initiative. This morning, we were present at the commissioners' meeting where the mayors or their representatives spoke in favor of allowing the public to vote. People from the county and from outside the county spoke against the vote. Municipalities brought the issue to the commissioners last August. The issue was, in no doubt, controversial, especially because of the request for a new swimming pool. But the smaller communities in particular have critical infrastructure needs that they cannot afford to address without some kinds of assistance. The commissioners voted unanimously 3-0 against allowing the issue to go to the ballot. Okay, next item is to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the April 5th, 2022 council meeting as published.
I'd move to approve the minutes as presented.
Councilwoman Steinbach, thank you. We have a motion on first. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approved the consent agenda. Next item is to approve the agenda, and there are no additions or corrections.
I'd move to approve the agenda.
Councilman Kinney, thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kelly, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have approved the agenda. This will take us into action items. The first action item is a proclamation proclaiming April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day. Attorney Eddington.
Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with planting more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide a habitat for wildlife. And trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And trees in our cities increase property values, enhance economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Randy L. Adams, Mayor of the City of Torrington, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim April 29, 2022 as Arbor Day in the City of Torrington, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day, support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and further urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you. Like I said in the information items, last Friday we had a tree planting ceremony up at the sports facility. A bunch of 4th graders from local schools were there to help us get those trees planted. They had a big time. I don't think anybody fell in, but they all participated in planting those trees. It was a good time for all. So good way to celebrate Arbor Day. Council.
I would move to approve the proclamation.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kinney, thank you. Motion and a second to approve the proclamation. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have approved the proclamation for Arbor Day. Item number 2 is a proclamation proclaiming May 1st through 2nd, 2022 as Drinking Water Week. Attorney Eddington.
Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas drinking water serves a vital role in daily life, serving an essential purpose to health, hydration, and hygiene needs for the quality of life our citizens enjoy. Whereas tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. And whereas the hard work performed in the entire water sector, designing capital projects, operators ensuring the safety and quality of drinking water are a member of the pipe crew, maintaining the infrastructure communities rely on to transport high-quality drinking water from its source to consumers' taps. Whereas the coronavirus pandemic has shown a light on the importance of drinking water for health, hydration, and hygiene needs. Whereas we're all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which current and future generations depend. Whereas the citizens of our city are called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, to get involved with their water by familiarizing themselves with it. Now therefore be it resolved by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Torrington, Wyoming, I do hereby proclaim May 1 through 7, 2022 as Drinking Water Week.
Thank you, Mr. Eddington. Jeff, do you want to comment on the Drinking Water Week?
Well, just big shout out to Tom and his staff for all the work that they do to provide Torrington with drinking water that's clean, safe, and healthy. Obviously, drinking water is essential for life itself, and without it, we probably wouldn't be here. So, in regards to the drinking water, it's also used for irrigating lawns, recreational facilities, and just all our commercial businesses. So shout out to Tom and all the work that he and his staff do to keep Torrington full of water.
That was great, Jeff. Thank you. If you ever get a chance to visit our water treatment plant and see what's all involved in the production of clean drinking water for the community, it's amazing. It's amazing the amount of work, the amount of equipment, the technology and so on that goes into it. It's amazing that we get to that point and can provide such good quality drinking water for our community. Council.
I would move to approve the proclamation for the Drinking Water Week.
Councilwoman Steinbach, thank you. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kelly, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the proclamation as Drinking Water Week. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approved the proclamation. Item number 3, proclamation proclaiming May 21st, 2022 as Kids to Park Day. Attorney Eddington.
Whereas May 21, 2022 is the 12th Kids to Parks Day, organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the third Saturday of May. Whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks, public lands, and waters. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat the issues of childhood obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Randy L. Adams, do hereby proclaim May 21, 2022, Kids to Parks Day.
Thank you. The National Park Trust is actually a support arm, voluntary support arm of the national parks. And of course, in so doing, they would like to encourage more and more people to use the parks. This began about 12 years ago. 2010 was the first one, and it continues to grow, and we're glad to participate in it. So anyway, May 21st, National Kids to Parks Day.
I would move to approve the proclamation Kids to Parks Day.
Councilman Kenny, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the proclamations establishing May 21st, 2022 as Kids to Parks Day. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approved the proclamation. Item number 4 is an ordinance on third reading relating to minors in licensed liquor establishments. Attorney Eddington.
An ordinance amending and reenacting Section 5.12.025 of the Torrington Municipal Code, 2022 revisions relating to minors in licensed liquor establishments.
Thank you. This is a third reading, and we've had 2 previous readings on this. Chief Johnson, any changes, any comments?
No comments, no concerns, no changes.
So it stays just the way it was approved before, okay?
Yes, sir.
Council, do you have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve it on third.
I would move to approve this ordinance on third reading.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Steinbach, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance on third reading, minors in licensed liquor establishments. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approved it on third reading. Goes into effect tomorrow, Sylvia?
It'll be published Friday.
Published Friday. Okay, good enough. Item number 5, ordinance on third reading relating to restrictions on possessing and purchasing liquor or malt beverages and entry into liquor establishments. Attorney Eddington.
An ordinance amending and reenacting section 9.36.020 with the Torrington Municipal Code 2022 revisions relating to restrictions on possessing and purchasing liquor or malt beverages and entry into liquor establishments.
Thank you. And again, this was third reading. We've had 2 previous readings. Any comments, changes?
No questions, no comments, no changes.
Good enough. That's what we want to hear. With that, council, do you have?
What was originally changed in this?
This one was actually amended so that under specifically subsection B, it makes it subservient to 512.025, which is the ordinance that we just passed, rather than trying to contain everything under the essentially criminal side of the ordinance. We referenced it back to 512.25 so that it would just hold folks accountable to following those rules that are established there.
Any further comments, questions? Thank you. We have we're ready for a motion, council.
I would move to approve this ordinance on third reading.
Thank you, Councilman Kinney. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kelly, thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance on third reading restricting on possessing and purchasing liquor or malt beverages and entry into liquor establishments. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have unanimously approved the ordinance. Item number 6, ordinance on third reading relating to the regulation of hours of operation for licensed liquor establishments. Attorney Eddington.
An ordinance amending and reenacting section 05.12.030 of the Torrington Municipal Code 2022 revisions relating to regulation of hours of operation for licensed liquor establishments.
Thank you. Again, third reading. Chief Johnson.
Nothing particularly new this week. However, we hadn't had a chance to chat with Councilman Kelly, but we did add the changes that you had suggested related to some clarification on package sale locations that might be open post 0230. So hopefully that will add the clarity you were looking
Yeah, I
for.
saw that and appreciated it, yeah.
Very good. But other than that, we've got no other questions or comments, and it seems to be working well for folks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Further questions for the chief? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Move to approve the ordinance on third reading?
Councilman Kelly, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Steinbach, thank you. Have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance on third reading, excuse me, relating to the regulation of hours of operation for licensed liquor establishments. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approved the ordinance. Again, goes into effect Friday. Good enough. Okay. Item number 7, ordinance on third reading relating to the regulation of solid waste in the city of Torrington. Attorney Eddington.
An ordinance amending and reenacting Chapter 8.28 of the Torrington Municipal Code 2022 revisions relating to the regulation of solid waste in the city of Torrington.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, this is third reading again, but during the process of bringing this forward through the first and second reading, we've had a few changes. We had to modify it a little bit. It is a large ordinance, and it's pretty involved, so I wouldn't be surprised we didn't have changes tonight. So, Matt, do you have anything to add?
I'd be happy to have no changes tonight, but whatever you guys, any feedback is appreciated and welcome. We did make the change under 828.070 for Councilman Patterson's recommendation under subsection 1AI3. We added the word use so that we had that consistent in wording throughout, just to make sure that that is easy to understand and apply. Other than that, we've had good conversations about this and feel pretty confident about where we're at with it right now.
Okay. Questions, council?
Just a comment, I think you did a remarkable job with this. We're dealing with a complex issue and all these details and pages of ordinances about garbage. And you can't regulate everything, but I think this is a good job of giving some tools to work with, just to, hopefully people will use common sense. And
I think we all learned more about garbage than we really wanted to know in this process, but it feels like we came out in pretty good shape.
but I think it was well done, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Patterson. Thanks, Chief. I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve this ordinance.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kenny, thank you. Have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance on third reading relating to the regulation of solid waste in the city of Torrington. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have approved the motion on third reading. Brings us to item number 8, which, what do you know, is not something that Attorney Eddington has to read. Potential sale of real estate. We have property located at 217 West 20th Avenue, and the potential sale. Building Supervisor Estes?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just to give you a little history on this building, if you don't know, this is 217 West 20th Avenue. The city of Torrington bought this in the early 90s, I believe, and they used it for their ambulance building for quite some time before they built a new shelter over here. But that building is shared with the Moose and, of course, Subway, and then on the same lot, there's Pinnacle Bank Drive Up. So the mayor asked me to do a market analysis. We've looked at wanting to get rid of this property. What we have in this property now is some, our facilities maintenance guy that operates out of this building. He has to keep some trucks over there. He's got a few tools and some storage, of course. But what he also keeps over there are his 3 spray trucks for the mosquitoes. And they're very old trucks that we use, and they run fine, but all summer they sit up at the shop, and in the winter they sit over here. So our intention, if we would go forward with this sale and if we sold it, we would like to add on to this garage right behind this building here to the west, because that's where his other maintenance stuff is. We'd like to have him in one place, so he's centrally located right here in this building, because he does all the maintenance here, and he'll work out of this area instead of having the 2 locations. This property also has an apartment upstairs. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. We used to rent it a long time ago, and I think the past mayor got tired of being a landlord, so we got out of that. We've remodeled it a couple times, but we're here, and I'll let Eddington talk to you to the terms and how, if we sell it, how we can sell it. So I think he just wanted input on if you, council, wanted to move forward with this.
Thank you. I think what brought this to the surface is, it's been for sale for a long time. We've been trying to sell it. I remember back when I was a councilman, we were trying to move that, but just didn't work out. It's kind of an awkward situation, but we do have somebody who's interested in it. So in order to sell it, you have to do it according to the statutes, and you can't just outright sell it. You have to bid it and all those kinds of things. So that's the whole point of bringing it to the council's attention tonight. What would you like, Dennis? Comments? What?
I would like to draw your attention to the picture on the screen. I would like to explain this a little bit. So it is kind of, the building is kind of chopped up. So what you're looking at here is 20th Avenue. So right over here would be the filling station of Chima's old filling station right here. So, and then of course the bank drive-up's right here. This is what we own. We own a 70 by 50, or the city owns a 70 by 50 lot here. That is our entire piece of property. The problem with this property is this area right here is the walk-in cooler for the Moose. So there's a walk-in cooler here and a storage area here. It is described in this picture, and in our last deed when we bought it, it was drawn up and described, but it never got signed by the past administration. So we've just carried on that way. We have not received any rent. We've not asked them for any rent. We just kind of let it be what it is. So I think, of course, Eddington can speak more to it, but whoever wants to buy it, they just need to be aware that that's there. There's no way of getting it off there. All the electricity for all the building comes in right here.
Yeah.
So it's split up. We got shared services of sewer, water. The building used to be a great big bar back in the day, but it was chopped up and added onto, and so that's where we're at with that. And I think Attorney Yankton could speak more to how we'd want to get rid of it.
So is the Moose interested in moving it out of there into their
The
space?
problem is, they're just using this cooler. It's not a cooler, it's just storage now.
Just
They're not-
storage.
It's just, all this is storage, but the whole problem here is this area right here is all the main power for all the building. So it splits off and goes 10 different direction, and who knows where when you get into it. But there's no way that we can just cut that out of there and describe it out of there, because what's above that is our apartment. It's not like it's out in the open and we could just at least sell them that piece of ground. We own property above this.
Now, in that picture, where's the garage doors at?
There's one here, and then there's one in
Oh,
here
it's over
somewhere.
on that side.
Yeah. This is just a lot picture. I didn't get a building picture, because it had the picture of this cooler on there. That's the only reason I.
It was the totalway.
Used to be the
And
Toadaway, yes,
the
sir.
apartment upstairs is where the band stayed.
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of stories there.
Yes, sir.
So how does the Moose gain access to those storage spots?
Their building is right here, and then they got a doorway here inside their building. This is on the ground floor. Above this is our apartment. This is the shared common wall between us and the Moose. This wall here goes 2 stories from here up. Actually, not all of that, this is probably 2 stories, probably right in here somewhere.
So, in order to make this as saleable as possible, the walk-in cooler area is not functional, it's just storage.
Yes, sir.
So it could be sold that way, and we wouldn't be out anything, and it wouldn't be a problem,
Correct,
okay?
yeah. I don't think there's any way that we could ever take it over and just have it our building and block it off at the Moose, just because of the way things work in there, and you'd have to go look at it. But the way that works in there, that's always gonna have to belong to that owner right now until they decide to do something different in there. We could block it off then, but.
Okay, so, go ahead, Kate, excuse me.
There's no access from the apartment or from the building, the other side of the building. It's just from where the Moose is?
This is a doorway here that goes to the apartment in the alley, so that goes upstairs. This is under the stairs.
Okay,
And then, no, to answer your question, you cannot get from one building to the other
okay,
without going around to the door.
okay.
So, in order to sell it, we're gonna have to publish it. We have a market price estimate for us. Where do we go, Jim? Where do we go from there?
And that's the reason we got a broker's opinion on it, so we have that valuation. So pursuant to statute, we need to publish it. And you can either ask for sealed bids or go to public auction under these circumstances. So that's the direction we're looking for, assuming you're interested in selling it. That would be the next step.
But we know that the fair market value is not usually the appraisal value, right?
No, it's usually real close to that, actually, and that's why the statute requires us to value it. It's usually higher than assessor's value, general rule of thumb. And a broker's opinion we're able to use for valuations in all of our court stuff that we do, probates, everything. We don't do appraisals anymore. That's a bank underwriting waste of time and money,
So the
in my opinion.
2 options are auction or,
Or sealed bids. We publish it and ask for sealed bids from anybody and everybody that's interested in purchasing it. And we would reserve the right to reject all bids, of course. So if it's not within some reasonable range of the valuation of it, then we would fiduciarily have to reject all bids.
Now, if we sold it to somebody and they wanted to put a business in there, aren't they restricted by there has to be so much parking available for it, right?
On that area, we would have to probably grandfather that in because the way it was built, there's no off-street parking. You'll never create off-street parking, other than the fact that this building has 4 stalls inside it considered off-street parking. You could put 4 vehicles inside this building if you didn't remodel it. So legally, they would have off-street parking. The apartment, we always had issues with giving them off-street parking. When we had people there, that was always an issue because we had the ambulance service downstairs, and it created a problem, so we quit renting it. So, but there is the public lot a half a block away.
Yeah. So that if we do sealed bids, or if we auction it, we would reserve the right to accept or decline any of the bids.
Correct.
Are we required by law then to take the lowest bid if it's a sealed bid?
In this case, it'd be the highest bid, since we're selling and not buying.
Oh, okay.
All right, so you're looking for a recommendation from the council?
Correct.
Looking for direction. If you want to sell it, we'll proceed with option or sealed bids.
Well, based on the information that we heard from Mr. Estes, it's benefit to us to sell it. We'll use the money to build the shop that needs to be built back here for our maintenance people. This building is distant from any other city buildings. It just seems to me it would make good sense if we could turn it over and use the money to build something we need to build.
We agree.
There's probably not a better time to sell real estate that I've seen in recent years anyway, than right now.
So the issue is auction or bid.
Correct.
What is the
Not
preference?
being a real estate expert, is there anybody in the audience who could speak to that?
It is.
And I would like to mention, Mayor, generally, when we try to dispose of property, we advertise in the paper, and I take sealed bids, and then we give them to you, and you guys say yes or no. And then if you don't like those, then you can maybe auction it. That's an option. There is-
Historically, we've done sealed bids. It's more efficient, it's quicker, it's less expensive, it's more competitive. Well, maybe not more competitive. But then, I think like Dennis suggested, if you reject all sealed bids, you can then schedule it for auction with summer coming.
We may get 1 bid, we may get 7 bids,
Correct.
just depends. We know of 1 person that's interested.
We had several last time, I believe, but they were all below what we believed we needed to receive.
If we put it out for bids, can we put a minimum bid?
No, you would reserve the right to reject.
I was gonna say, I still think that 230,000 is way high for the type of building and the place the building is, but if we can just do it as a high bid, then that's,
So council, what do you think?
Do we need a motion? Are we taking an action that way, or?
I guess.
We would like a motion on which procedure you want to use.
I would move to sell the property using the bid option.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Patterson to sell the building by a sealed bid. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kenny, thank you. Further discussion? I don't hear any, so I guess we'll proceed with the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Hope we didn't make that too much of a mess for you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right,
See what we get.
yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Estes.
Good, I think, good decision. All right, item number 9, petition initiation for annexation into the city of Torrington. Property is located at 1501 East 20th Avenue. Staff reference is Mr. Estes and Mr. Eddington.
You want me to go? So, as I believe was discussed several months ago, the city has numerous islands. And we believe that we have a duty under Wyoming Statute 151406C to dispose of those islands and annex any of those areas. We've had a few jurisdictional issues that always creates the same discussion, and that is basically county versus city and law enforcement and those type of emergency responses. And so we always attempt to eliminate those. That's a recurring event. I've been here 32 years, and we've discussed it probably 25 of those 32 years. And we finally made a decision to move forward. We have identified all of those current islands, and this is the first one that we chose to initiate with. Mr. and Mrs. Rutt are here tonight, and we picked them because they're so easy to get along with and very understanding, easy to communicate with, and former clients of mine. But we've had some discussions. So it's kind of a new procedure. It's one that we haven't done while I've been here. All annexations have been by consent, by people wanting to come in, or our own real property. So when the governing body initiates a petition, it's governed by 15-1-404. And interpretation of those statutes are not easy. Dennis and I have spent a lot of time on this. We've prepared numerous drafts of different documents. Dennis caused a petition and the statute and all the information that we'll be discussing with you to be forwarded to the Rutts, and talked to him beforehand and told him it was coming. And I believe they received it about April 10th. I talked to both of them in the building a few weeks ago. And of course, they do not want to be annexed, and that's understandable. But what we have under the statute, our interpretation requires us first, under 404A1, to show this governing body that reasonable evidence exists that this specific area meets the conditions and limitations of 15-1-402. So in your packet, you'll see several maps and exhibits. Exhibit A is a visual map, if you will, aerial map of the proposed annexation property. There's another Exhibit A, which is the tax district map that shows the same property. And that, there's also a warranty deed, which we'll call Exhibit D, and of course that shows the legal description. The real property is in Mr. and Mrs. Rutt's name as we sit here today. 402 generally talks about factors, and we start with one, that the area is being annexed for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of persons residing in this city and the town. And there really is no argument about that. We want to get all of these islands eliminated, so our emergency personnel, primarily our police department, does not have to worry about responding to a call and whether they should respond and/or the deputies should respond, and those issues. There was a court case approximately a year ago where there was a case, a felony drug case, where there was a motion to suppress, and it was granted, and part of that issue was a jurisdictional issue. So it's a recurring event. So we would submit that 402A1 is met. 402A2 talks about the urban development of the area sought to be annexed would constitute a natural, geographical, economical, and social part of the annexing city or town. That is beyond question. We would represent to this governing body that this property is basically surrounded 100% by the city, There's an argument that on the north side, there's a piece of property that's not annexed yet, that will be next in line. But even if you discount that border, if you will, they're over 83% surrounded by city property. And I'll remind you that 151406C talks about any objections to an annexation in the normal course of annexing. And if more than 50% of property owners object to the annexation,
This goes up to,
then the governing body has to stop that annexation and not do anything for 2 years.
I thought it was property.
C makes an exception to that and basically says if 75% or more of the perimeter of the area to be annexed is contiguous to the corporate limits of the annexing city or town, the provisions of subsection B do not apply. And so we believe there's no question that's the situation that we're in. If you move to 3, it's somewhat repetitive. It says the area sought to be annexed is a logical and feasible addition to the annexing city or town and the extension of basic and other service customarily available to residents of the city or town shall within reason be available. Obviously, it's a logical and feasible addition. It's surrounded. I believe they currently have electricity and garbage. I believe they have their own well, but water and sewer are obviously right there because it's everywhere else. If you look at 4, the area sought to be annexed is adjacent or with the annexing city or town, or it meets 407. 407 is property owned by the city of Torrington, so that's not applicable, but it's certainly adjacent to the annexing city or town. And then finally, 5, if the city or town does not own or operate its own electric utility, inapplicable, obviously, because we have our own electric utility. 6 talks about a public hearing, and that's altered a little bit because of the procedure that we're following with the town. That public hearing will come after the fact if this governing body approves the proposed annexation report and approves the resolution that we will ask you to consider it when we're done with this presentation. If that occurs, then the statute requires a public hearing not less than 30 nor more than 180 days from the date of this resolution being granted tonight, if that occurs. The way the calendar falls, that would be the first meeting in June, we would have a public hearing. And in theory, we would go from a proposed annexation report to accepting the evidence of the annexation report, following the same exact factors. Excuse me 1 second.
So tonight, what you want from the council is to approve a resolution in support of the annexation?
2 steps, and that is to find that there is reasonable evidence that 402 is complied with, and then the resolution. There are 2 other areas. B, 402B talks about contiguity would not be affected by a river or sidewalk, something like that, not applicable to our facts. And C, it says the municipality shall prepare a proposed annexation report as specified in this subsection and what it contains. And we've done that. We have that ready. And what it contains is all these exhibits that are in your packet. Exhibit A, the map. Exhibit B, the estimated cost of utilities, even though early on they probably would not use water or sewer. Exhibit C is the estimated increase in tax for them, which is about $278, so very minimal. And then Exhibit D, which is the legal description. And those are all things that would be part of that annexation report under 402C. So if you go back to 404, which we're following, under 1, we have to show reasonable evidence that it meets the conditions and limitations of 15-1402, and we believe we just presented that. Moving to number 2, A, the legal description, and we would do that, the legal description, current mailing address, and then under B, determine if the area considered complies with 15-1402. It's a little bit of a redundant statute. It's convoluted, to say the least, because in 1, it talks about evidence of 402, and then in C, it talks about the proposed annexation report in 402C. And that is the report that we have with all the attachments. So it gets a little confusing if you don't watch all your subparagraphs and subtitles. D is to prepare information for any landowner utility requesting it. We have not had any of those requests yet. We would comply with that. And then finally, if you look at B under 404B, that is the part that talks about the resolution. And it says if the area complies with 15-1402, the governing body shall adopt a resolution certifying compliance, and the procedure outlined in 405 and 406 shall then be followed. If the area does not comply, no further action will be taken. So we would ask you to make a finding that this area does comply with 15-1402, and subsequent thereto, we would ask you to adopt the resolution that's in your packet. Assuming that happens, we would set a public hearing under 405 at the June meeting, and proceed with that public hearing at that time.
So, first of all, a statement stating that we find that it does comply with what we...
We would need a motion from this governing body that the evidence we presented to you, this area proposed annexation complies with 15-1402.
Okay. All right. So, council, that's where we're at this point. As you would say, it is somewhat confusing.
It is, unfortunately. It's an old statute that needs updated. So Dennis and I have created a flow chart to try to follow it, and that's how we
This
do it.
property, I know probably, and Kirk, you could probably square it away with me. This property has been sitting there as a county property for, God, I don't know how long, 50 years, 60 years, more than that?
50 plus, yes.
50 plus. And during that time, I believe there's been an improvement made on the property that's not shown on the map, is that right? That is a,
My home,
pardon?
my house,
Oh, okay.
and I have a commercial shop.
Okay. So for all these 50-plus years, everybody around you's been paying 20 mills. You've been paying 12 mills on your property tax
I'm not gonna say for 50 years, no, because
for whatever years it's been.
yeah.
Okay. So one of the benefits to the city is that by bringing you into the city limits, you would be paying your fair share. You may not see it that way, but essentially that's the case. Right? You're not going to agree to that, but that could be one way to look at it. The city of Torrington has been providing streets, alleys, police department, fire department, all those things, and you've been benefiting from that without having to pay for it. Right?
I did not ask for it either.
No, you didn't, that's right. And so I understand the logic behind this. The logic is to benefit the city by an increased amount of revenue coming from the tax, protecting you from situations that we might get into that would cause a problem. When I first became mayor, we had an incident I'm not going to say where, but we had an incident in the city of Torrington where the police were called to assist in a situation. We had a person who was drunk, and the people couldn't handle this individual, so the police were called. The police went down, dealt with it. Person was, appropriate people came, took care of this individual. He went off and became a ward of, I think, some kind of dry out institution or something. And anyway, shortly after that, we found out that we didn't have any jurisdiction there. In fact, we had violated the rights of that person by coming in as Torrington Police Department onto that property. We did not have an MOU with the Sheriff's Department, is that right, Matt?
At that time, we did not.
Did not, yeah, at that time, did not have an MOU. And so realistically, that should have been handled by the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department didn't respond. Torrington Police Department responded. We had an issue with that. And that's kind of what generated the beginning of this and got us to this point. So that's where we're at. Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, sir. I think everybody explained it pretty well. I mean, I understand both sides of the story, but the fact remains, I mean, they get paved streets, they get street lighting, they get sewer or garbage now, and they get a lot of stuff in the city that they don't have to pay tax on. You know, their streets are swept, their snow removed, their stuff like that. It is, again, he didn't ask for it, but I mean, that's the problem we're having with this, and mostly it comes down to the jurisdiction of the police department. You know, and then it does create issues for us when we're trying to do other stuff around with annexing and zoning or whatever. But I want everybody to understand, if this does go through and it does pass, and it goes all the way and it gets to the end and they come into the city, you have to understand by statute, they can operate everything they're operating now as they are today. The only time that city could make them change something is if they stopped whatever they're doing there for a year. So say he didn't want his shop there for a year and it just let it go. He sold his property, a guy come in, wants to do something different. Then that's when they'd have to bring it up to whatever code would be there at that time. Currently, if we got to the end of this, they could do whatever they're doing there as they are today. They just couldn't, they couldn't add any more businesses without becoming, that business that they're building would have to become within code and all that kind of stuff. But currently, there would be no changes to their property.
No changes in their use of the
No
property.
changes in their uses, no change in their property. They're, I believe, Sylvia can speak to this, I believe when their electric rate go down, if we get into the city,
No, we don't have we don't have two different rates.
they wouldn't change, and the garbage rate's the same inside or outside.
So, I have a question. So, for example, you talked about as long as things stayed as they are currently. So if, for example, his sons take over that property,
Yeah, if they wanted to operate the gun shop and his shop and the realty office, that could all stay the same. If
his
it's-
home.
Yeah,
all
his
that
home,
would
if it,
stay the same.
yeah, but if it stopped for a year, I mean, Huckfeld Trucking is a good example of this. You know, Huckfeld Trucking's one that we in the past had some issues with, but they could continue that use there if somebody come in and just bought it. But now that he's stopped that use for more than a year, if somebody wanted to come back now and do that same thing, it would be kind of difficult. But if they decided to do it at the time and sell it to whoever, and they could continue the business as was.
So the new owner then would be grandfathered in because of, okay.
According to the statutes.
Okay.
And that's how we've always looked at it. They call it a legal nonconforming use.
So I'm to understand that, Kirk, you're against the annexation? Okay. Mr. Eddington? Can you explain 15.406, item B? Where it talks about more than 50% of the landowners?
Did you say D?
B as in boy.
B. That is, when there's objections to an annexation, 50% of the landowners, and the exception to that, of course, is C. And that's what we're relying on not only this one, but all of the annexations we'll bring before you. is that more than 75% of the perimeter is contiguous to the corporate limits, then it basically eliminates that 50% objection and termination of the procedure.
So where it says you can't take any action within proposed annexation within 2 years, if C applies, then B doesn't apply?
Correct. And that's what the last sentence of C says. If it's been annexing the city or town, the provision of subsection B do not apply.
Mayor Adams, councilmen and women, I would like to speak on behalf of the Reds if that's.
Come on up.
So I have come before you recently to get my variance for my law office. My name is Alyssa Colson, and the Reds have come to my office and asked me to represent them in this matter with this annexation that they are facing. I do agree with Mr. Eddington that these statutes are very convoluted and confusing, and very hard to track and hard to follow. That being said, I do believe, though, that, let me get back to it. 402 A6, it indicates that before any town can annex a property, that there are those certain criteria that have to be met. 4026 indicates that no less than 20 business days before a hearing, the landowners are required to receive notice. So that notice was not provided to the Ruts or to the neighboring landowners. So when you're dealing with 402, landowners is defined not only by the property that you're trying to annex, but also property within a half a mile of that perimeter. And it is my understanding that the Ruts had reached out to the neighbors that would fall also within that half a mile radius, and they did not receive the certified notice that is required by these statutes. So not only had notice not been provided, but a lot of the attachments that was provided to you, the maps and the legal descriptions, were not provided to the Ruts in what they received. So they have been attempting to find maps, the legal description, what the city is trying to essentially annex of their property. So they have been going between the assessor's office to planning and zoning, to the city, as well as to Benchmark, to try and get property maps and to figure out exactly what's being annexed, who's also gonna be implied with this. So the attachments that are also required weren't provided to the landowners. So that alone, I do have a concern with, that they weren't provided with the proper notice that's statutorily required to them and to the neighboring landowners. I would also like to say that part of annexing is to benefit the landowners and the city, which is understandable. I understand that, and the Ruts also do understand that. However, the Ruts have been there for about 50 years. They have lived in the county. They chose to live in the county. They want to remain in that county. They understand that there is a difference of the rights that you have as a county versus in the city. Yes, as Mr. Estes did say, is some of the property rights you are grandfathered in, but there's a lot that's not grandfathered in because you are now bound by the ordinances. One of those ordinances is riding ATVs. You have shooting weapons. They can't get chickens. They can't get a horse if you're in the city limits. If you're in the county, you have that right. That is part of the property rights that you obtain when you're in a county, and that's a choice that they've made. That's a choice they made to stay in the county. They can ask to be annexed in, just like other individuals can ask to be annexed in, or they could purchase a home that's in the city limits, but they haven't done that in 50 years, and they have no intentions of moving to the city. I'm also not well-versed in real estate and the market. I do know the market is up. Ms. Rutt, I believe, would be able to speak to that way more in depth than I could ever attempt to do that. But I know as a landowner, I live out in the county for certain reasons. Part of that reason is land is worth more because you have more rights. You have less restrictions than living in a city. So by annexing them, yes, they get to do what they are currently doing, but if they wanted to expand and get 15, 20 chickens, they can no longer get their 20 chickens on their acres of land that they have, when they normally could have done. So it's the little things like that that may not be a big deal now, But for them, it's a lot, and it's the future of their kids or grandkids that they don't know what may come about that land. And like I said, they've had it, as you also said, Mr. Adams, over 50 years in their family. Their family has had that land for a very long time. So the city hasn't been neighboring them for the full 50 years. The subdivision brought in, and then they became in the city. So because everything is growing around them, they should not be forced to be annexed into the city when the city is growing around them. It should be a choice. It should be a choice of that property owner. And being forced to give up property rights and being forced to get city services, I don't feel is responsible as a city to force individuals in your city limits. They have their own water, they have their own well, they have their own septic system. They have been self-sufficient for over 50 years. They understand that if they need something, they need to call the county, not the city. That's never been an issue. They've understood those differences. And so forcing them to change and saying that they rely on certain services that have been provided, like Mr. Redhead indicated, he didn't ask for the road to be paved. The city paved it. He doesn't have to have city trash. He doesn't tie into the city sewer. They don't tie into the city water. So there's certain things that could they do? Of course they could, but they've chose not to tie in. They chose not to be annexed in. They chose not to do all that for a reason. And so forcing them into this annexation is not only inhibiting some of their property rights as property owners, but it's also forcing them to do things that they don't want to do and shouldn't have to do based on their own choice. It is a choice to live where you want to live. And so forcing them to live in city, I don't feel is something that should be forced upon anybody. So I will leave that up. If you guys have any questions for me as to my interpretation of, you know, the statutes 402 versus Mr. Eddington's, like I said, I agree it is very convoluted and hard to follow. I've spent many hours trying to dig through these and to find a plausible path. But I do believe they should have been awarded a minimum of 20 business days before this hearing and should have received the proper notices, the maps,
And I think that would be my question, Ms. Colson, is you say that they were not informed of all the stuff that they should have been informed of. Can you guys address that?
Mayor, all I can say is I sent this packet here to him. I've spoke to him in my office. I did send him a certified letter. I couldn't control the mail. It was sent on the 28th. He received it on, item was delivered on, said this item was delivered on 3/29. So, and this isn't for the public hearing. This is for just the resolution, to notify him of this meeting.
And that's the point, Your Honor. This is not a hearing. The reference to 402.6 concerns a public hearing. That's coming after this resolution, and they will receive proper notice of that public hearing, and it will be in the paper.
So as far as we're concerned, they have received notice of everything they should have received at this point.
Correct.
Mayor Adams, they actually have, the Kirks have the letter that they received in the mail. They received it on the 29th. I would ask them to come up and show you the document that they received in the mail that does not contain any of the attachments. And I agree that, you know, a public hearing is required going forward, but 402A says that before any territory is eligible for annexation, the governing body of the city or town at a hearing provided in 405, which is what we're asking, shall find that, and then everything follows below. So it even indicates before anything is even possible to be annexed, all of these things under 402A, B, C, D, and E are required before a public hearing is even requested. So like I say, it's all up to interpretation as to how you want to do it, but my reading of the statute is the 20-day business days prior to even this hearing should be awarded to a landowner in this situation. And that after, if it is found by the city that all of these criteria are met under 402, then the public hearing that is awarded under 405 is what comes into play, where it's noticed in the paper and everything to that effect. That is my interpretation of 402A.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like, as commissioners and councilwomen, would you like to see the envelope that the Kirks received in the mail? They have that, the envelope with what was attached and they received to show that they did not have any of the maps. I did ask them to provide that and to bring that today. If you guys would like to see that.
I guess we can take your word for it that they haven't received it. Mr. Rutt wouldn't lie about it, so
Do you guys have any further questions or comments for me?
council? It is confusing.
So you're saying that now they've been provided all this information?
They have never been provided with any maps that are required under any of these statutes that would show the property that the city is requesting to be annexed, the property description, or any of the maps that was portrayed that you guys had received in your packet. There were no maps ever provided, no legal descriptions ever provided. Any of the attachments in the report that indicates that C Exhibit A, B, C, and D, none of those attachments were ever provided to the Rutts.
None of the legal description was provided in that letter?
The legal description's on the top of this very front letter. So it says annexes from a parcel, and then there's a deed in there. The deed, their deed is in there.
They have personal knowledge of their own real property.
Say it again, Jim.
They possess personal knowledge of their own real property and where it's located. But the point being that information is required prior to a public hearing, and that information will be provided again prior to a public hearing. This is not a public hearing.
So all this is preliminary to a public hearing.
Correct.
And then what happens at the public hearing if this goes further?
Unfortunately, about the same thing. We present the same evidence, and then you would find that 402 has been complied with, and then we would have an ordinance for first reading. But the intent is to give them all that information again, give them time to prepare a response at the public hearing. Call witnesses, do whatever they choose to do at the public hearing.
So what we're asked to do at this point is to adopt a resolution certifying compliance. Is that correct?
Yes, you need a motion finding that 402, there is reasonable evidence that 402, under 1, that 402, that the area meets the conditions of 15-1-402, and then adopt the resolution certifying compliance with 402. And then we would give them notice of a public hearing pursuant to 405.
Not totally clear, but I appreciate your effort. Council, do you have comments? Are you ready to do any of this, or what do you think?
So the total, both of the estimated cost of city services is estimated on this 1501 East 20th. So that estimation is the annual cost of just that will increase, there will be an increase to them of the 4,241. Is that in addition to the 278, the tax dollars?
Theoretically, theoretically, that would be, but factually, there's going to be a zero increase because they already receive electricity and garbage, and they're not going to receive water and sewer.
Okay. That was
So
my
nothing
question.
should really change
Okay.
for them.
No
Okay.
change.
Okay, thank you.
No change there, but increase
In the tax.
in the tax.
Their tax would increase that 200 and whatever dollars was estimated, yes, annually.
So, Mr. Estes, when you and I talked the other day, and this has been, I think, right before Mr. Rutt came in to see you, if I remember right, you told me that all of the information that we had, or that we were getting, was being sent to Mr. Rutt.
Yeah, I stamped a copy on mine. I'm sure I sent him all
Well,
these
you
documents.
did mine too, and that included the maps? and
It
all of
included that, included the taxes, you know, I thought it
Yeah,
did, but
okay.
I guess I could have missed it, but I don't think I did, but
Okay.
I tried to include it if I didn't.
Well, that's what I thought, because that's what we talked about is, because you asked me if I wanted a copy, and I said, well, I'm going to get one in my council packet
Right.
anyway, not to waste,
I try to keep everything the same, so everybody's talking about the same documents, so.
yeah. Okay.
I apologize if something got missed.
And Mr. Rutt, you didn't get any of?
I got no exhibits, no.
Okay. Oh,
So
that's
going
unusual.
forward, possibly we should defer till the next council meeting, give them a chance to receive all that information that they claim they have not received.
You can certainly do that.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Absolutely.
Certainly choose to
I-
do that.
Mayor, I think I would move to table this until proper service could be done at a minimum to start the process. So I guess my motion is that we table it until proper service is completed.
Okay. Councilman Patterson
Second.
made a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Kenny. Is there further discussion? And I appreciate the input from Ms. Colson and everything else. And there was certainly no intent on Mr. Estes' part or Mr. Eddington's part, I think, to deceive. It may be, maybe we made a mistake, but we didn't do it on purpose. So, anyway, further discussion. Motion to table. Hearing no further discussion, pardon? Ready for a vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have tabled that until at least the next city council meeting.
Can I ask a
Thank you.
question? I do have a question, if I may. Mr. Estes, with just the part that's outlined in yellow, why are we not taking the rest of that? The property that's, would be north of, and Rutt's new house, which would be, yeah, right there. Why are we not taking the rest of that?
This right here?
That's what I considered Rutt's new house.
Right.
And then why are we not taking everything west of that?
West of that, these two properties are not
That's-
in the city
That's
limits.
east,
Let me get to this other
Yeah,
map.
because it's upside down in the picture.
yeah.
So this is a better map for you. So this is Rutt's. This is their new home that he built for his mother a few years ago. And then this property is empty property.
Right.
These two properties are in city limits.
The 181 is?
It's 181. These two,
Okay.
1 and 2,
Oh,
these lots
okay.
1 and 2 are in city limits. This lot here and here, the Rutt's original home is not in city limits, and the one behind it to the east is
Colors.
not.
Which is Brian and
Which
Lisa's.
is Brian and Lisa's house, yes. So that 300 feet there is the only thing that's not surrounded by the city on this property.
Okay.
So
So that
Councilwoman
answers-
Steinbach, that's 20th, of course, the airport's here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first house when you're coming from the airport on the south side is Brian and Lisa Coller's house.
Yeah,
That one and the one directly west of that is not in city limits currently.
okay.
Okay, is that it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Mr. Estes.
the issue is tabled until at least the next city council meeting. All right, moving to item 10, award the bid articulating loader. Staff recommends awarding the bid to Wyoming Machinery of Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the amount of $228,960. Our staff references tonight are Clerk Treasurer Stricker and Ed Hawley, our Streets and Sanitation Superintendent. Which one wants to take this? Okay?
Not everybody speak at once, Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We opened bids for the articulating loader at 2 PM on April 13th. The results of the bid are in the memo. We had 3 very competitive bids, all from Wyoming. The lowest bid there is from Wyoming Machinery, and it did conform to all the specifications. Funding for the project is in the fiscal year 22 budget under account number 5445880 in the amount of $225,000. It is over by approximately $3,960, which is pretty good nowadays, considering the way things have really shot up. And Ed believes that he does have the funding in 5445710 in equipment maintenance, equipment O&M. So we believe that the city's best interests are in awarding this bid and getting it ordered. It is 100 days out. which isn't too bad considering we're waiting for a pickup we ordered last November and it hasn't even been started yet. So staff recommends to award the bid.
Thank you. It appears that obviously the Wyoming machinery bid is considerably lower, so there would be no question there. Council, do you have any questions?
I just get the feeling with these bids that we're gonna have to get used, business as usual isn't the same anymore. Bids are gonna come in high. We probably need to anticipate that as we go forward in the budget session.
Right.
And the lead times are long. This is actually pretty reasonable considering, but it's just probably the reality that we live in now, so.
Where is this gonna be primarily used, Ed?
So you can hear me.
Thank you. Some of us struggle with that.
Hey?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It'll be used at the landfill.
The landfill?
Yes.
Does this take the place of the one that you pay so much for every,
It'll take we'll trade off a loader that's a 74 model with approximately 15,000 hours.
74?
Yes.
Because this says 92.
Isn't it 90? Okay. I could have my numbers mixed up.
14,380 hours?
Yes. Yep.
It's a lot of hours,
It's a lot of hours.
a lot of hours.
Put the loader from the landfill to take the place of that machine.
And the lead time on this is how long?
100 days.
100 days?
100 days, which is pretty short for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So there'll be more time on that, the old cat, or the, yeah.
We've been trying sparingly not to have to use it.
Okay. Jeez, 100 days. That still flabbergasts me.
Yeah, I don't want it to die before it's traded.
Yeah, good plan. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, Ed, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, are you ready to take action?
I would move to approve awarding the bid to Wyoming Machinery.
Councilman Steinbach, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Councilman Kenny. We have a motion and a second to approve awarding the bid to Wyoming Machinery Company in the amount of $228,960, that includes the trade-in, right? Did I say it right? Is that the number you wanted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, further discussion.
And you're sure you have money in that $3,960 to make up the difference?
Yes.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously approved, the loader. Thank you. Next item is the financial report as of December 31st, 2021. Clerk Treasurer Stecker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. These financial statements are as of December 31st, 2021. I've been postponing getting them on the agenda because the agendas have been really lengthy, so I was trying to save some time. So we'll quickly go over these. These, of course, are not current, so just keep that in mind. This was the last quarter that I had completed. So first of all, we'll look at the cash at 50%. December 31st is at 50% of the year, fiscal year. So on the top, we have our restricted cash. This is all the cash that can't be spent on regular operating expenses. This is dedicated for specific use. Our restricted cash is a little over $2 million. The unrestricted funds, we have investments with Morton Asset Management and Edward Jones totaling $8 million. And in checking and savings, we have $6.6 million. So our total cash with restricted is $16,890,000. And it's really close to what it was 6 months ago, $42,000 less. And of course, the rates are not good as of December. We are seeing rates starting to slowly go up. As far as our accounts receivable and utility billing, accounts past due, we're at 65, almost 66,000 at the end of December. The number of discontinuations for non-payment were 26 accounts, totaling 5,930. The amount at collections, 86,664, and the amount turned over to the attorney is $5,762. And just for your reference, this is where it was 2 years ago. It is slowly inching up. It's just those times, I believe.
You know, every time we do this, the question comes up about, what do we do about that $86,000? How do we get control of that? It's just difficult.
I do believe we probably need to try to consider probably another collection agency. We have not had a lot of luck lately or results. And it could be the times, I don't know. I know there is help out there for utility payments, and we try to direct people to those places if they need help paying their bill. A lot of these are skips. We don't know where they are, or they've moved out of state. It's just
People that have rented and have left, things like that?
probably a lot of renters, yes.
So
Not property owners typically.
Sometimes, but not usually. Sylvia's probably more aware of the actual list, but
Tenants than landowners, if the landowners are ones that live out of state, because it's difficult to track them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and I have a question about that, if I could ask it. And you've probably answered this in
Sure.
last year, but it's been a while since then. At some point, these clearly become just uncollectible or whatever. Do we have some guideline or whatever that we use at some point? We just write them off?
yeah, so
Get 'em off
every
the
year
books.
in July, we'll
Okay.
bring you a list, and you have to approve that list.
I seem to recall that now. Thank you.
So we'll be getting ready to do that here in a couple months.
Thank you.
This is 1 year of,
No.
oh, okay,
Collections, I think they keep them for 10 years,
okay,
and then after that, they don't,
okay.
we are able to write them off, so.
That's based on the statute of limitations. They consider that a written contract. So after 10 years, if you haven't commenced legal action, you can't do anything.
Okay.
That's the norm anyway.
Okay,
Thank you.
so, how are we doing cash-wise? The next page, it kind of shows you where we're at as of 12/31. So I bring the cash balance forward, and I need to add in the revenue we haven't received yet this fiscal year. I have it budgeted that we're going to receive it. And so I have those categorized here. There's $2 million in taxes I haven't received, $9 million in loans, other income, and then user fees and services of $8 million. So our total cash and unearned revenue for this fiscal year is $37 million. So that means I'm expecting $20 million in more revenue coming in before June 30th. And then I add it to our cash balance. So that leaves $37 million. But now we've got unexpended expenditures as well. So we have operations and maintenance that we still have to spend of about $12 million. We have debt obligations out there. And then we have these capital and equipment expenditures that are still out there that have not been spent and probably will not be spent. This year I'll be carrying over a lot of equipment. I'll be carrying over a lot of projects. We have to account for that. That's appropriated. That money is set aside for these purposes. So if you look at our unexpended appropriations, we're at $23,800,000. And then if you take that off or subtract that from the 37, that leaves us with 13 million. And we can't spend this cash on operating. This is that restricted cash. So the cash reserve that's unappropriated is 11 million. Last year, we had 7.9 million. And in 2019, we had 7.8. So we're really not doing as bad as we could be right now. Luckily, sales tax has kept up for us, which makes a huge difference. And the last 2 years, we've really cut down on our expenses and our operating, not knowing what was going to happen to our revenues. So you can see that how that's affected our cash reserves.
A lot of this column right here is gonna change, we hope, within the next few months.
I hope so.
We hope.
We have a lot of infrastructure needs, a lot of equipment needs that need to be taken care of. Are there any questions on the cash report? We now can go to the budget report and see how we're doing compared to budget as far as our plan for the year. So as you can see, like I said, our taxes are doing fairly well for the budget. They're at 60.73% for sales tax. Cigarette tax is about at 50%, and we want it to be right around 50% this time, at this point, December 31st. State gas tax is at 58. So you can kind of look there. We're doing fairly good. I have, as of December 31st, I had not picked up our property tax or vehicle tax from the county, so it is still sitting in their funds, but I will be getting that, and so the next report will have that. So our total taxes are at 48.87%. Clerks and licenses are at 82%. I had only estimated 8,000 for building permits, thinking that building would still be down, but it has picked up. So that's something I did not expect. And then the rest of these are miscellaneous type things, charges for services, franchises, all of those, and those are at 46%. Out of all these, I took out the capital revenue, or the revenue for grants, leases, loans. And so I have this much revenue budgeted, and we have not received only 7% of that total. So our total general fund revenue is at 42.47%. Now, if we go to the general fund expenses, we want this to be under 50%. And so, as you can see there, our subtotals are at 47%. This is the operating, so I took out all of the capital expenditures. So this is just operating. So I took out capital and equipment. Everybody's doing real well. I'm right at 50, I'm a little bit over. Parks and Rec was over just a tiny bit. But we're all within reason here. So that's good. And as far as construction, it is kind of slow as of December. We've only spent 141,000 out of 1.3 million.
So why is maintenance so far below everybody else, they're projected?
We quit breaking things.
Sorry, it's a lot
I
different.
can't answer that right now,
Okay.
but I will get back to you. I think he has a pickup that I didn't take out of there. I'm not sure. Let me get back to
That's the
you.
truck that was approved, but we're waiting on,
I
right?
think so,
Now,
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's move on here to the other funds, the enterprise funds, and we'll quickly go through these. I don't want to bore you or keep you too long here. The revenues are actually doing pretty well on the enterprise fund side of things. As you look at the water fund here, they were at 52%, which is right where we kind of want them to be. And their expenditures are well below the 50% there for power and pump, metering, and distribution. The sewer fund was at 53%, which is really close to where we want it to be, and their expenditures were at only 40%. Electric fund revenue is at 54%, and their revenues or their expenses were under the 50% as well. Sanitation revenue is a little bit below of where we'd like them to be, and their expenditures are right at 46%. Airport revenue, really close there at 50%. Golf revenue was at 49%, and their expenditures are at 50%. Pool revenue, 46%, and their expenditures were at 50%. Ambulance, 47 and 47. And then cemetery, their revenues are a little higher than I expected, and their expenses are lower.
So I have a question related to that, and I don't mean to be gruesome at all. I saw, I think it was Wyoming had 1,600 or something excess deaths in excess of normal last year because of COVID primarily. I wonder if, has business been better than usual at the cemetery here? Have there been more burials, I guess would be?
That or there's been more lot sales maybe,
Okay.
not
And
necessarily
I don't want to be
burials.
disrespectful at all about this, but-
I could break that out for you.
Okay, I was
and
just
get those
curious
numbers
if
to you.
if that was just
It's
something that.
better than I expected anyway, and it is better than last year.
Yeah, and that's one of those where you would hope for low sales, but,
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like that with ambulance too, you know.
True, yeah.
Yeah,
It's nice if it's not needed.
yeah, it is. But they're services that we provide.
Yes, thank you.
And below that here, these are all of the capital construction and equipment projects that are budgeted and where we're at as far as expenditures on those enterprise funds. The next page pretty much gives you the net revenue, and this is before depreciation. The general fund, positive. The water fund's positive. The sewer fund is slightly negative. The electric fund is positive, but we do have some major expenses coming up in there that'll offset that. Sanitation fund, right at break even almost. Airport, and of course, all the others there are negative and usually are negative. The ambulance isn't quite positive yet. I don't know. It's just one of those things. But the net revenue for the entire city is at $511,000. It is positive. Last year, it was at $1.5 million. And it just is all timing of expenditures kind of thing. But, and there is just a little chart of how it can really go back and forth. I'd be glad to answer any questions and go into further detail if I have the information here. There's a lot of information I try to condense into a few pages.
Well, overall, it looks like the city's, considering what we've been through the last 2 years.
I think we're going to go
We're
into
doing
the
okay.
budget with a pretty good cash carryover, but we have a lot of needs, as you guys heard during our last budget session. We looked at capital and expenditures of over 40 million, so.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Council, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the financial report as presented.
Thank you, Councilman Kenny. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. A motion and a second to approve the financial report. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Appreciate it, Lynette. Good job.
Well done.
All right, next item is to approve the bills. Clerk Treasurer Stricker.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Attached to your agenda were a list of bills, and handed out tonight was an additional set of bills. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have on those bills.
On the first page under badge or meter, 6-inch custom meter, you know what that one's for? Or what makes it a custom meter? For $4,000?
That's a very large meter that we ordered. I don't know if Sylvia knows if it was installed anywhere, if it was just in stock.
It's not quite installed yet. It's gonna be for one of our larger services, but the custom part is the lay length. You have to get it custom to fit where it's gonna be installed. But they usually run that much, those larger meters.
So we ordered it for a particular use. Does that mean that part is billed to that customer?
Yes, I believe it's North Torrington is what it serves.
North Torrington?
Yeah, we have a little subdivision on 30th there that has about 10 customers that it feeds.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do have one, and I think I've asked this before.
Sure.
So the scanner on Mika Digital Services or Mika Digital Services for the scanner, is that for one of the new police cars, or is that even for police, or?
What, was it on the first set?
It's on the first set, page 5.
Okay, thank you.
Under, MIKA Digital Services.
Scepter scanner.
I guess maybe I don't know what that is. It might be just a,
5377 is
I
pretty.
was thinking scanner for.
Oh, that is a scanner that we have at the purchasing, when they check out materials. They scan the codes and it goes into inventory.
Okay.
Yeah. We had that
thought it was a
budgeted for this year, so it did come in, yes.
Okay, thank you.
While we're on that same page, back down a couple of rows down for MWC Acquisition Company, refuse containers, what kind of, are those regular trash cans? Or
Yeah, those are containers for garbage, yes.
The plastic ones that go for the household?
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah, it doesn't have an amount there, but do you need the number?
How many do we get for $5,000?
We got 50 of them.
I probably have the bill.
50.
So that's pretty good price then.
$5,000?
5,000.
Well, 4,897.
There was also, I got some small mods to go in between for the trucks to pick them up, are included in that.
Nothing's cheap.
Nothing.
But if we don't ask, we don't know.
No, you don't.
So it's just a little personal home.
They're the 96-gallon rollouts
Yeah.
that we use up in some of the Vistas and most all of the Bighorn and Campbell area. And we're getting some that's cracking, falling apart, so need replaced.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the bills as presented.
Councilman Steinbach, thank you. A motion to approve the bills. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Patterson, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is public comment. Is there anyone here tonight who'd like to address the council, ask a question, make a comment, anything like that?
I gotta make one comment.
Go
I
ahead.
was in Washington all last week, or last month, I guess I should say. And I went to check out the services of KGOS on the YouTube video. Got to watch the whole thing. Very good job. Thank you.
It's really effective. It really is.
I have something I probably should say. I guess this is actually addressed to the media, okay, and to the people in the room. On Friday, April 15th, past Friday, was my birthday, and I turned 65. And as a result of that, I decided, I don't like this retirement that much. So I was appointed as the interim president of Eastern Wyoming College, and I'm in that capacity right now. And the reason I am bringing that up, because it's directly relevant to the city, I think. I just want to assure the voters that I will continue to do what I was elected to do. I will continue to attend the meetings. I will continue to attend the budget sessions. I will continue to do my duty as a city council person. You can do more than one thing, but I just maybe put people's mind at ease. That's a full-time job, as you can imagine, and then some. But, I didn't have much to do anyway, so I may not sleep much, but I just want to assure the citizens of Torrington that I am still absolutely dedicated to the city of Torrington. And I guess while I got the floor for just a second, if this is not inappropriate, I believe that I will be filing to run for mayor for the coming year, since our mayor will not run again. And I'll
Thank you.
stop there.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Any further comments? Mr. Hawley?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to say thank you for everything, and then I also want to mention that a private enterprise so far is operating the recycle center, it's picking up cardboard. So, I want to get that out.
Where is that and how is that?
It's in the building that we were in,
Okay.
and they are taking cardboard, and
Speak.
intends to expand, but that's what he's doing right now,
Okay.
Just the cardboard?
just cardboard.
I had a question from a citizen about that very thing probably 2 weeks ago. And I asked Ed, and he said, we've got this guy started. And so it made us all look good, because we were able to immediately answer him that, yes, that's starting back up, and they will take cardboard, and that's what he needed. He was getting pickups full of cardboard from his business, so.
But eventually, this business will expand to take
He
aluminum.
plans on going with glass and metal cans
Okay.
and paper products
Not
eventually.
use glass anymore?
We'd love it to be plastic, but there's no market
There's no
for it.
market for plastic.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're forming a 501c3 nonprofit. All of the entities involved are contributing to the effort. The city has contributed the building, a couple of compactors, the space down there and so on. Others have contributed other things. I'm going to meet tomorrow with Denise Lucero of the Soil Conservation District, who has suggested that there's grants available. We'll try to work through some of that. And anyway, the effort is started, and hopefully it will grow and become more than what we're at right now. So, thank you, Mr. Hawley.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kind of odd to see Mr. Hawley volunteering to speak. Thank you. Any other comments? See no one coming to the front. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn our regular session and open an executive session.
I'd move to
Adjourn regular session.
Adjourn regular session and open into executive session.
Thank you, Councilman Steinbach. Is there a second?
Second?
Councilman Kinney, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, about 3 minutes, we'll be in executive session. Thank you.